Is it audible now? Hello students, let me know if it is audible or not. Okay. Okay, let's get started. In the previous class, we were discussing causes of Russian Revolution. So, if you remember, Russia was all about peasants and workers' struggle. So, peasants' problem and then workers' problem, as well as weak monarch, that is Tsar Nicholas. He was one more problem, and then Russia's failure in World War. You all know that Russia suffered huge setback in World War. You have already discussed that. I am just trying to recap whatever we discussed in the previous class. So, that is another big problem. And Russia also fought a war with Japan regarding Manchuria area. So, Russians were not happy with the severe losses of World War as well as Japan war. As Russia had to lose a lot of wars in this period, Russian people, the public was very angry at monarchy. And we have discussed this episode also, Rasputin scandal. We all know that Rasputin was a holy man, self-styled God man. He was offering to help Prince Alexis, the son of Tsar Nicholas, to heal him hemophilia disease. But what really happened is, actually, he crossed his limits. He was interfering in day-to-day affairs of the government, and to say it, very clearly, he had an affair with Queen Tsarina Alexander. Tsarina means queen here, Alexandra. So, this episode has brought a lot of disreputation for Russian monarchy. So, that is why he was also assassinated, but it was too late to save the reputation of Tsar family. So, he was also very important cause for Russian Revolution. And then we have discussed all these points in the previous class. Now, let us discuss the opposition of communists. One thing to be understood here is, in the beginning of the class, we discussed one thing. I think this is not clear. Okay. Will you call her? Yeah, I am checking that text issue. No, text is not visible. This background. Yeah. It's not visible here.
We can edit, no sir, we change the color.
Do it. No problem, do it. Only this slide or all slides? We can only change slides for the only. Hmm. One minute, online students. It is okay now, but I think we have to change for everything. I think, huh? It is clear now. Is it clear now? Is it clear now? Please let me know. Online students. Yeah, yellow is not a problem. Red is problem. This one Russian convolution. You change and later send it.
No, they are not.
How can you change every slide? It will take time now. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So, the opposition of communists. I have already told you that there are we discussed socialism in the beginning, who are in favor of collective ownership. I already discussed that the biggest problem in Russian Revolution is poor peasants are angry with nobles who has lot of land. So the point is, they were not interested to pay them tax, and one more thing is, they are actually killing them, taking their land and then distributing among themselves. So you can say that poor peasants, but actually the people who started this idea of socialism, socialism is nothing but collective ownership. But communism, later socialist, Russia becomes a communist country. So little difference is, communist government, communist philosophy is very harsh. It's like a kind of a dictatorship. They say there is no place for private property. The state must own all the property and it should take all the decisions. So communist people are little bit harsher than socialism in terms of property. And here, if you see, two parties actually emerged in Russia. One, SDWP party, Socialist Democratic Workers' Party. The other one is Socialist Revolutionary Party. The Socialist Democratic Workers' Party are of the view that, see, Workers' Party, they are focusing more on workers. As I have already told you, whole Russian Revolution is full of workers' problem as well as peasants' problem. So that's why this SDWP party was focusing more on workers. They believe that it is actually against capitalism. Please try to understand. It is communism versus capitalism or capitalist governments. So capitalism means all the property is in the hands of private people. Private people own the land, they employ the people, or they own the companies, they employ the people, then they just take the profits. The problem with capitalist theory is that they may not be concerned about the welfare of the workers or welfare of anybody who is employed. For that reason, socialists and communists, particularly communists, always opposed capitalist theory. They were always against capitalist theory. So, in communism, they believed in workers. They said workers should be the owners of the companies or properties, then they will take care of themselves. But again, you have to understand one thing. When we say China is communist country, Russia is a communist country, or America is a capitalist country, no country is following 100% any of these political economical philosophies. They are just mixing it up. For example, if you see, we are going to discuss Lenin and Stalin in this Russian Revolution, who are the supporters, pioneers of this communist theory, but actually those people became dictators. Later they became dictators. So you may call communist dictators. So all these leaders just used all these political philosophies or theories to their advantages. No country is following any theory or philosophy 100%. They are mixing it up according to their situations. Now, when we talk about communism, the father of communism is Karl Marx. Karl Marx. You might have heard about him, who wrote a book, famous book known as Das Kapital. Das Kapital. So, the communists believed the ideas of Karl Marx. Whatever I told you now, the important word you have to remember here is proletariat. Proletariat. That means workers. The term given for workers is proletariats. So, who are proletariats? Workers, and they should be the owners, they should be the employees, they have to distribute the property among themselves. This is what happened. Now, Lenin followed Karl Marx theory, and you call it, even in India we have CPI, CPM, you call it Marxist communalism. What is Marxist? Karl Marx. Okay. So, Karl Marx always says the whole history is about clashes between different classes. Clash between classes. Classes means like peasants, workers, aristocrats, clergies, church people, nobility. So, it is all about clash between these different classes. That is what he believed. And see, you have to understand one thing. Lenin believed in Marxist philosophy and he followed this communalism. Later he changed socialist party into communist party. But one thing is, did he give that authority or leadership to workers? No. He said, workers cannot lead the movement, they cannot lead anything. They need somebody like me, he himself told. So he took the leadership reins and he became the leader of that party, and eventually he led Russia in the revolution. So the underlining point is, all these people are very thirsty of power and they wanted a power. They bring in different philosophies and theories and they try to make advantage of that. Now, one more thing you have to understand, this SDWP actually is now divided into two fractions. That is, okay. So, Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. Like these are two factions in the same party, that is Socialist Democratic Workers Party, SDWP. So, Bolsheviks is led by Lenin. Some people even consider he is like father of Russia, like what is Mao to China, so is Lenin to Russia. And Mensheviks, leader is Martov, but Martov did not get as much as popularity of Lenin. So now try to understand, this social revolutionary party is now has taken back seat. Now there are two factions within SDWP party. These two parties are now craving for power in Russia, and we all know that Lenin is more ruthless, brutal in his approach. He wants to get whatever he wants at any cost. Whether there may be revolution, there will be bloodshed, killing the people, genocides, anything, he doesn't mind at all. Okay, so that is his philosophy. He will go after his goals at any cost. But Mensheviks are not like that. They are a little bit democratic. They are not followers of democracy. They are little bit democratic. They want slow and steady progress. That's why they did not gain any success. Now, in Russian language, Bolsheviks, the word Bolshevik means majority. Mensheviks means a minority. But you have to be very careful. Bolsheviks' philosophy is not to give membership to anybody, not like Mensheviks. Bolsheviks' name is majority, but they actually wanted to give membership to only few people who are very serious about it, who can dedicate whole their life. But here Mensheviks, they are open to anybody. They wanted people, they were open to anybody. Then what happens? Mensheviks have got more people, but they are not dedicated. So they are actually opposite to their meanings. That's what you have to understand. So this is about different parties and factions in SDWP party. This is what happened. And then actually Bolshevik leader is Lenin, but he had one army commander, his name is Trotsky. Army commander Trotsky. So actually Trotsky worked very hard and he was a good strategist, particularly when Lenin was away from Russia. Lenin was actually exiled. He was somewhere in Switzerland. He was exiled. Then Trotsky was very powerful. He helped his party in many of the revolutions. So another important personality here is Trotsky. Remember, his name is Trotsky. He was the commander of his Bolsheviks army. Now you try to understand, SW party is divided into two factions. One is Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. Apart from being a party, Bolsheviks had their own army. You call it Red Army or Red Guards. Okay, Red Guards or a Red Army. So that is the point we have to understand. Lenin was actually exiled. Later he was exiled. He spent a lot of time in Switzerland. Online students, is it okay now? So Nanki asking the question, any country which is totally communist. So we have three countries, Russia, China and North Korea. These are biggest communist countries. But as I told you, 100% no. For example, we say Indians are a democratic country. But are we democratic 100%? For example, there were some surveys. India was somewhere 65, around 65. India's rank in democracy is 65 rank. So we are not as democratic as we should be. We call ourselves largest democracy. America was not within 25 ranks. They are beyond 25 ranks. That means for the namesake you may have a democracy or a communism or something, and these leaders are not sticking to any philosophy. There is no need to stick to it also. Okay, sometimes you have to mix it up according to the situations. Okay, so Kalyani is asking, has some doubts. Please, can you tell me, can you be more specific? Kalyani, can you be more specific? Okay. See, there is no election system, it is not a democracy. Sumedh is asking, is there any election system? There is no election system. Okay. And somebody is asking where to cover world history. Yeah, we will let you know. I mean, in class it is difficult, but we will discuss. Causes of Russian Revolution. So, one student is asking, I told you, this is also one of the causes. And then, as one student is asking, let me tell you, weak Tsar Nicholas is one of the causes, and the problems of workers is another problem, and then peasants problem is one more cause, these three causes. Rasputin scandal, a holy man, that is one more cause, and then the war against Japan is one cause, because they lost against Japan over Manchuria place. So people were very disappointed, and their loss in World War against Germany is one more cause. These are all the causes of the revolution. Okay, and this opposition of communists, this is also one of the important reasons. Rise of communists is one of the important reasons of World War, Russian Revolution. Is communist, how leader is chosen one after another. See, my point is here, it is like a dictatorship. I told you they call it communists, but Lenin is very ruthless. You will come to know that he caused more deaths. Okay, Lenin and Stalin caused more deaths, almost even equal or more than Hitler, and people don't highlight that. That is the problem. So here there is no election system. It is a communist country. That is the reason you can't see any election system. There will be parties, but no election. And very interestingly, Lenin was out of the country in Switzerland, still he had that hold on his Bolshevik party. Trotsky was doing all the hard work for him, so he could have taken the reins of the party. But it was very lucky for Lenin that whether he was there in the party or out of the country, he was able to take the leadership of the Bolsheviks. And later, and there is one conspiracy theory that actually Germany actually helped Lenin to come to Russia at the time of revolution. They wanted to help him for their own ends. So Lenin was able to come to Russia and he was able to participate. Okay, and you have to understand one more thing. There were two events in Russian Revolution. Two events. One is 1905 revolution and 1972 revolutions. One is February February, the other one is October. So, lot of people say this 1905 revolution is like a rehearsal, dress rehearsal for the revolution of 1917 as well as 1917 February and October revolutions. So, as I told you, workers were not happy. Okay, the biggest problem is all the people who are working in companies. You have to understand again here the point I told you in the previous class is Russia was not industrialized as much as other countries in Europe. Industrialization came to Russia very late. Then the workers faced a lot of problems. Sanitation was a big problem, housing was a big problem, and then working hours were too long, working conditions were very harsh, okay, wages were very less, and any trade unions strikes were harshly dealt with, but still people came onto streets, protested the autocratic government. These things happened. At that time, a person named Father Gapon. So his name is Father Gapon. He took the charge of the revolution. Actually, he wanted to discuss with Tsar Nicholas about their conditions. So they all protested. They were going to Winter Palace. There is a palace in St. Petersburg. Throughout this Russian Revolution, we will be discussing only two cities in Russia. One is St. Petersburg, the other one is Moscow. St. Petersburg, later the name is changed to Petrograd because that name sounded like Germany, because they all hated Germany. That's why they changed the name Petrograd. Again, Petrograd is changed to St. Petersburg. Later it changed into Leningrad, then St. Petersburg. Now, St. Petersburg name is St. Petersburg, but try to understand, St. Petersburg changed to Petrograd, Petrograd to Leningrad, Leningrad to again St. Petersburg. So, there is a winter palace, and all these people were marching towards that. These people were fired upon. Tsar Nicholas was so brutal, and he was not at all concerned about the welfare of the people. So, his army fired upon these people. 100 people died. 100 people died, and then it is known as Bloody Sunday. In the history of Russian Revolution, it is known as Bloody Sunday. So, remember that? Bloody Sunday. 100 people were died. So, that is 1905 incident revolution. It is like Harbinger to main revolution 1917 revolution. In 1917, two revolutions took place in February and October, and historians say that this February revolution can be called March revolution, and October can be called November revolution also. The reason is they were following a different calendar. At that time, we have a Julian calendar, Gregorian calendar. We don't need all that stuff, but they were little bit behind. So that's why for them it's a February, you may call it a March also, and October, November revolution. So February revolution is the fall of Tsar Nicholas. Fall of Tsar Nicholas is February revolution. October revolution is Lenin takes the reins of the country, that is known as October revolution. So, we all know that Tsar Nicholas was very weak, and he was somewhere commanding in the First World War, and then his wife took the day-to-day operations of the country, and she bought that disreputation. There was a lot of administration chaos all over the country. Then what happened is, in February, all the people were just against Tsar Nicholas too, and then just like 1905, people were marching, they were coming to Winter Palace, and then this time, just like previous time, the army was supposed to fire on protesters. What happened is, now army was not interested. Army was also unhappy with the things going on in the country, against the country. So this time, army joined with protesters. Army joined with the protesters. Then it has necessitated, actually created a situation where Tsar Nicholas was very much insecure. People advised him, if you are here, all are very angry, it is better to abdicate the throne. They said it is better to abdicate the throne. So abdicate means, what is abdicate? Abdicate means leave. Abdicate the throne. So, his brother wanted, I mean actually Tsar Nicholas II wanted to continue his dynasty, so he asked his brother to be in charge of the country. But the point is, brother was also very much afraid of the situation. Then they have given this administration to provisional government. We call it provisional government. Provisional government, led by Prime Minister Kerensky. So he is the Prime Minister, Kerensky. So he also could not do anything. That was his problem, because every time there is a revolution, Tsar Nicholas II says, I am going to, they call it October Manifesto or something, October Manifesto. He wanted to give some kind of freedom of speech, some democratic rights, equality, peace, freedom of speech, everything. But the point is, he pacified the people by starting a parliament known as Duma, named Duma. Okay. So what is Duma? Duma is a parliament. This Duma was created 3 times, and every time he created, actually there are people like army people, some peasants, all those people were part of that. They actually advised Tsar Nicholas II to change the system to be more democratic, or try to take care of the people's problems. But Tsar Nicholas II, whenever he was advised by parliament, he dissolved that. It happened 3 times. So you can understand this point is also one of the reasons for Russian revolutions. Failure of Duma. We have discussed this. All these causes were discussed in the previous class. Those online students, if you are not attending this previous class, you can see that video in the portal, UPSC portal. So failure of Duma is also one of the important reasons for Russian revolutions. That means every time there was a revolution, there was anger from the people. He was trying to pacify them by starting Duma, and those members, they really thought, okay, we can advise Tsar Nicholas and bring some changes. They really genuinely thought that. But we all know it is not really a genuine thought by Tsar Nicholas II. He was trying to pacify them. Then after that he was dissolving that Duma. It happened 3 times. So this is the background you have to understand. Failure of Duma 3 times to restore some democratic rights in Russia was important cause for Russian revolution. So I have discussed all these points, whatever we discussed, you can see here, February Revolution 1917. Okay. So again it is not visible. This is a problem. Okay, no problem. I changed the slide. Now, factors that helped Lenin impose communist countries in Russia. Okay. So now we have discussed that Lenin was exiled in Switzerland. Now, how Lenin got hold of everything in Russia? how he got to impose communist control in Russia during 1917 to 1924. So, you can see that here in 1917 two incidents happened, fall of Tsar Nicholas I, and then Lenin entered Russia again. He came from exile. Now, the points are, how was he able to do this? Communist control. So, first thing, abandonment of the Constituent Assembly 1917. Abandonment. What do you mean by this Constituent Assembly? You know, once Lenin came to power, he promised the people elections, to hold elections for a parliament to be known as Constituent Assembly. Don't get confused, Duma is the parliament at that time. Now, they are just saying it Constituent Assembly. Now, as one online student was asking the question, how are they elected? You can see that Lenin has no respect for democracy, no respect for elections. He just promised, and then what happened? Lenin renamed Bolshevik party as a communist party, in order to win wider support. However, communists got only 175 seats out of 700. They got 175 seats out of 700. So, now what Lenin did is, he has dissolved Constituent Assembly. He said, this process is not correct, this is not needed for the country. So, he has shut down the Constituent Assembly. So, you have to understand, Lenin doesn't believe in elections, doesn't believe in democracy. He has his army, Red Army, Bolsheviks, and he has his secret police. Okay? He was going to control everything with police as well as army. So, Lenin was not prepared to share power with anybody. Now, communism, apart from communism, you can add one more thing, that is a dictatorship. So, now it has become communist dictatorship. Okay? We all think Russia is about communist country, they think about collective ownership, they think about people. It is not that true, because dictatorship is something that was ingrained in Lenin's mindset. That is why he becomes communist dictatorship. Then next, so this is one way how he was able to control Russia, communist control. Next one, as we have already discussed, you can see here, he has his own secret police, Cheka. So, those agents, they go everywhere in factories, villages, and then if people are against communist government, they are arrested, tortured, executed. This is what happened, and almost you can see 50,000 people were arrested and executed in this period. So, Lenin is not any less than Hitler. 50,000 people were arrested and executed. Just there was no reason, he wanted to have a communist control in his country. Whoever is against his party, against his ideology, were dealt brutally or even killed. 50,000 people. Okay? And then another important episode of revolution is Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Okay, Brest Litovsk. So this is actually in Ukraine now. Where is it? Ukraine. And you all have to understand, it is Russia, it has not become USSR now. Understand? Okay. Later it becomes a USSR. Okay. USSR, I mean apart from Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Lithuania, there are so many countries, almost all 15 countries are there. So Russia was so big, so big. Even now it is very bigger than second largest country, that is Canada. But at that time it was even very big because 15 countries were there. So now after this revolution, slowly it becomes USSR. Then in 1992, 90s, USSR is disintegrated into Russia. All that 15 countries, they get their freedom, they get liberated during Mikhail Gorbachev. He was the president. At that time he wanted to be little bit lenient or liberalized. Then what happened? Those countries, those territories broke away from USSR. That is a different history. Now let us discuss what is this Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. So it happened in 1918. You can understand it is related to World War. It is related to World War. World War took place from 1914 to 18. So the point is, Lenin was clever that he was fighting insurgency, he was trying to consolidate his power in Russia. He was facing all these problems. Now he does not want to face another problem outside his country. You try to understand, Russia is the country which defeated Germany in Second World War. But in First World War, Germany is the country which defeated Russia. And Russia faced humiliating defeat, very humiliating defeat. We need to understand, Russian army was not modernized, ammunition, weapons were not modernized, military leadership was not that great, and the morale of the army was not great. There are so many reasons that Russia was not good enough for Germany. That is why, to consolidate his power in Russia, Lenin wanted to have a treaty with Germany. This is very humiliating treaty for them. You can see, to successfully impose communist country in Russia, he was ready to give up some of the territories and some people also. You can see that 60 million people, okay, this treaty included, he has to give 60 million people. Apart from that, very huge amount of land in west, Russia's west, because Germany is in the west side of Russia. So he has to give up a huge land to Germany, and as well as 60 million people, and most of the land is even now Russia is very famous for natural resources, gas, okay, iron industries, coal industries, they are very famous. So that is one of the because there is a very vast country, they were not able to utilize that properly. They did that after this revolution. Until the Cold War, Russia has become very good superpower. It was able to give tough fight to America, but after Cold War now, China has taken Russia's place. It is competing with America. Russia is now lagging behind in terms of development. So that is not a force to reckon with now. That is not such a global power now. Of course, their military has strength, they have nuclear weapons, That's all there, but when it comes to development, they are nowhere in the scene. That's the problem for Russia. So now this Brest-Litovsk, okay, treaty actually took place as Lenin wanted to consolidate his communist control in Germany, and he was ready for that. And actually this place is actually in Ukraine now. Ukraine. So this is the importance of this treaty. It helped Lenin to control Russia in one way or other, because he doesn't have that headache of World War now. He can concentrate whatever is happening within the country. You can see that all these countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, all are part of Russia. Okay. So here Brest-Litovsk, this place is in Ukraine. These are some tongue twisters. Litovsk, that is enough. Brest-Litovsk. Russian names are little bit tough, you have to practice. Now, civil war starts. Civil war starts. It is between red, green, white. So again it is not okay. Civil war takes place between red, green, white. Try to understand this one. Okay. You know, red means that is Bolshevik army. Red means Bolsheviks army. Green means green is Social Revolutionary Party. Okay. And I think you remember that. In the beginning, there were two parties, Socialist Democratic Workers' Party and Social Revolutionary Party. So now, that Social Revolutionary Party has some army, it is known as Green Army. And then Bolsheviks army is known as Red Army. Then who are these whites? Who are these whites? Yeah, I will change the color. We will not use it later. Okay. So you can see here, red and whites are given, but there is one more army, that is a green. So greens are actually Social Revolutionary Party. They are more concerned about peasants. So you can say that this is army of peasants. Army of peasants. Whites, this is army of pro-Tsarists. You know, Tsar Nicholas II abdicated the throne, but he still have some followers. That followers have formed a army that is known as whites. Okay. So then peasants, they have army known as greens. and then Red Army is a Bolsheviks army. Revolution is over. In revolution, after the revolution, actually Tsar Nicholas II abdicates the throne. Later, that is the end of the revolution, but later you will come to know that Tsar Nicholas II, along with his family, they were brutally killed by Red Army, Bolsheviks himself. Okay. The reason is, this White Army was marching towards a place where Tsar Nicholas II was arrested, or he was kept there, his family. He abdicated his throne, they were there. Then these red people, Red Army was there. They actually did not kill him. So what happened is, they thought if white people come, they are supporters of Tsars. They are supporters of Tsars. So that will aggravate the situation. They will become very serious about that. That's why they thought this Tsar and Tsar family will become a rallying point for whites. To avoid that conflict, they just killed Tsar Nicholas II and his family, total 5 members with his wife. They just killed. It was very different. The reason is, he was just bayoneted. He was killed. Bayoneted means you have a rifle has got a very sharp knife. So they were stabbed with that knife, rifle knife. So you call that, that is known as bayonet. So bayoneted means he was stabbed with that rifle knife. So this is what happened. So long after revolution ended, he was killed like that in civil war. Civil war is not to kill Tsar Nicholas II. The point is, Bolshevik actually took the control of Russia. Lenin is in charge now. But still, these people wanted to give tough fight to Lenin, and they wanted to claim the throne, leadership. So that's why there is a fight between red, green, white. Reds are Bolsheviks. Again, I am just repeating. Greens are peasants, and whites are pro-Tsar army. So this is what happened. Opponents red, and then known as Tsar people known as whites. They are aristocrats, royalists, churchmen, army officers. All these were known as whites. But somehow Lenin was lucky in all the revolutions. He was able to suppress the insurgents, revolutions. So he was successful in suppressing these insurgents also. He emerged victorious in the civil war that took place from 1918 to 1921. Okay. The reason is, all these white people, pro-Tsarists, aristocrats, royalists, churchmen, army officers. Maybe army officers are good enough, but how can aristocrats, royalists, churchmen, a church priest, how do you expect him to fight? So they are not that good enough. And one more thing is, they are divided. White army is there, but they are divided. But this red army is so brutal and ruthless in their approach. So that's why they were able to suppress or put an end to this civil war very successfully. And as I already told you, they have great leader in the form of Trotsky. This guy Trotsky is a very able military commander. So he was able to achieve everything there for Lenin. You can see Trotsky here. Okay, he was so ruthless. every scoundrel who incites anyone to retreat or to desert will be shot. That means soldiers are sometimes are not interested in prolonged wars. They wanted to desert. They wanted to leave the country. But the point is, even if any soldier is leaving, they are not left alone, they are killed. And then every soldier who throws away his rifle will be shot. So there was no freedom for soldiers, there was no option for them. This is compulsory for them. That's how Trotsky was managing his army, leading his army. Now, war communism. That means he was actually trying to consolidate his power. I mean, there was no food, factories were not really working to their potential. So, he wanted to maintain his army. For that, he need modernized weapons as well as food for them. So, what he did is, he has sent his army to the farmers. He forced farmers to give up their food supplies. They took that food supplies, they were feeding army, and sometimes people started growing crops also. The reason is, anyway they are going to come and take away our food grains. Why to grow it for them? They are growing only limited quantity, whatever was required for them. So that was the kind of situation at that time. So Lenin needed a strong Red Army and he wanted weapons and food. This is what we call war communism. So he also brought all the managers before revolution, because factory managers who are very efficient, he brought them. He wanted to increase the production, which is very important, because whole country was going through a kind of a food shortage. You try to understand, just like French Revolution, why Father Gapon marched towards Winter Palace. The reason is shortage of food. So make no mistake, whether it is French Revolution or Russian Revolution, these monarchs were so cruel, they have let the situation out of control, they have crossed their lines, and people were starving. That is the reason why they resorted to revolutions. So there are many causes for revolutions, but immediate reason for this revolution also, shortage of food. Okay, then managers were there, they were trying to increase the production. Then Chaka, we all know this is secret police. This Chaka, people go everywhere and they bring the surplus grain from the peasants, which I have already discussed. It's all happening. The reason is, Russia was hit with a very severe famine, 1961. Okay, 4 million people died. 4 million people died. Russia did not have a huge population even now. But when you see here, earlier 50,000 people died, now 4 million people died. So in comparison to their population, these are huge blows, biggest tragedies. Now, Krondast revolution in 1921. This is nothing but a very minor incident, but it was like a warning. It was like a warning to Lenin that sailors were very much against him. Okay, sailors at Kronstadt naval base near Petrograd, they revoluted. So, they accused Lenin of breaking his promise to help workers. Now, try to understand Lenin Bolshevik party main agenda was to help proletariat. Proletariat means workers. Now, these sailors were actually accusing Bolshevik leader, that is Lenin, of breaking his promise. He was not living up to his promise. The reason is they accused him that he did not help workers. Okay. So, and when those people were revolting, Lenin ordered Red Army to put down the revolution. And how many people died? 20,000 people died. 20,000 people died. So, this is what happened, 20,000 casualties, everywhere lot of loss of life. So, Lenin was not at all worried about loss of life. For him, communism is very important. The one interesting thing about Lenin is he was not only interested in communism of Russia, he wanted to spread communism to other countries also. The biggest difference is with Stalin is next dictator. Stalin was not interested about international communalism. He was confined to Russia. He wanted to do something in Russia for his country. He was also brutal, ruthless, but the point is he was not interested in spreading communism to other countries. That is the biggest difference. Those online students, they are not able to see that blue color. That's okay. Now, success of new economic policy 1921. Please listen, this is very important from exam point of view. Okay. So, more important, new economic policy. So, Lenin was trying to bring some changes. We have already discussed, there were droughts, famines, loss of life, food shortage, all these problems. I mean, industrial revolution was not really improving. So, he wanted to do something to develop Russia. So, he was successful, moderately successful with this new economic policy 1921. What did he do? To regain popular support, he relaxed war communism. So, what did he actually believe in? Communism means government should control everything, factories, farmers, lands, production, distribution, everything must be done by state itself, country itself, government itself. Now, he has relaxed that little bit, particularly small private factories, private ownerships, peasants could sell their surplus on open market. Before that, peasants cannot sell their surplus in the open market. They cannot sell. That was communism. Now, he gave that relaxation. Peasants can sell and private people can start factories, they can produce goods, services, everything. So, this is what is known as capitalism. But we do not say that Lenin was resorting to capitalism totally. That is not the point here. He was relaxing communism little bit to bring some change and development in the country. Some people actually, they were actually criticizing him. You are deviating from the path of communist government. Some people were happy because it was bringing some results, happiness to people. So, if you leave all that, overall you can say this is some sort of a success, new economic policy. That is why it is important for exam point of view. So, Lenin hoped that Russia will get some sort of a breathing space to get back on its feet. So, it helped, and also it increased his popularity also. Most of the Communist Party saw the need for NEP. Some people were against it, I already told you. On the whole, it was success. But one thing you have to understand is, some people said it is not good because it would help kulaks. Actually, kulaks means there are some rich farmers in Russia. So, they said if you ask the people, okay, they can sell, they can grow anything, okay, they can sell in the market, it would help rich farmers. You know, communism is against concentration of money or land or power any private individuals. They are against it, money or any sources. So, that is why they are always against kulaks, some rich farmers. But whatever it may be, that NEP, National Economic, New Economic Policy was successful, and it brought considerable popularity to Lenin. It is one of the issue that helped Lenin to consolidate his communism or communist control in Russia. What are the issues we are discussing now? All these issues helped Lenin to have a communist control in Russia. Then when Lenin died in 1924, he had been very successful in imposing communist dictatorship in Russia. But Lenin was not very careful about his succession. Succession means he did not groom any leader after him. So then we have already discussed it is the fight between Trotsky and Stalin. Who is the second popular personality after Lenin? His commander, army commander, that is Trotsky. But Trotsky did not get that place to be the head of Russia. So, Stalin became, actually Stalin was secretary of the Communist Party. Even Lenin was not happy with Stalin. Lenin, who killed many people ruthlessly, he himself told once that Stalin is somebody who does not know how to use his power with caution. That means he is very overconfident, he is very brutal, he does not use caution in using power. This is the statement of Lenin and Stalin. So, he was also not happy with Stalin. But after the death of Lenin, it is Stalin versus Trotsky. Then Stalin was able to get that power, and Trotsky was exiled and he was assassinated. One thing you see even now in Russia, they assassinate the people very easily. Okay. So, he was also assassinated. Who? Trotsky. Now, we are talking about USSR in 1923. Okay. Actually, Soviet means council. In Russia, Soviet means a council. So, USSR, Russia became USSR in 1923. And you all know when it was disintegrated in 1991 or 92, that time Russia was disintegrated, USSR was disintegrated into Russia again. So, this is what happened. Russia became USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. Okay. But do you see any signs of republic in Russia? Republic is a democratic term. Okay. Lenin failed to provide clear successor, and we have discussed that point also. Now, we move to, I have already told you, it is Trotsky versus Stalin. Stalin is known as just a dictator, just like Hitler in Germany, Mussolini in Italy, and Hitler is Stalin is a outright dictator. There was no doubt. And one thing he continued from Lenin is killing people and trying to control everybody in the party, outside the party, throughout the country. Just to have a control, he was killing the people at his will. And they were using the word purge. Actually, purge means purification. Here, purging means nothing but killing the people to get the control over the country. Now, we are discussing struggle between, fight between Stalin and Trotsky. We all know that one interesting fact about Trotsky is actually Trotsky was not a Bolshevik, first of all. He joined very late. Okay? So, actually he was a Menshevik. That is another faction in SWPP. Okay? So, he later joined a Bolshevik. So, he had that disadvantage, but we all know that he was so successful as the commander of the Red Army, who was successful in many revolutions, particularly civil war. He gave his support. Almost all Lenin owes everything to Trotsky. But now Trotsky is finding it very difficult because Joseph Stalin is as ruthless as Lenin. So, he is not going to find it very easy to get the power. And then we all know that Stalin emerged as a successor to Lenin, and he was forced to exile. Okay, you know, exile means he was banished to other countries. Then it is also true that Stalin did not believe him, so he just had him assassinated. He had had him assassinated means he asked his people to kill him. So, he was assassinated. This is what happened. Okay. So, now actually Stalin did not play any significant role in the revolution of 1917. He was only a secretary of that party. And I already told you Lenin's view on Stalin. But Stalin was lucky, he was able to actually outfox this guy, that is Trotsky. Now, he is the head of the country. What is Stalin's legacy now? What did he do? Okay. So, you can see that Stalin actually became general secretary, had great power in his hands. But Lenin told, I am not sure that he always knows how to use that power with sufficient caution. These are the Lenin's words. So, comrade Stalin is too rude. If Lenin says somebody is rude, then they must be very rude, because Lenin himself is very cruel. So, why was he successful? Stalin was successful. We all know he was the general secretary, but Stalin had responsibility for appointing posts in the party. So he was appointing different people in the party. So he knew the people very well. So he was also popular in the party as he wanted to concentrate on turning Russia into modern, powerful state. So I told you Stalin was not interested in spreading communalism. He was interested in making Russia into modern powerful state. That was his goal. Whether it is communalism, any other party, he was not interested about all that. Okay. So I already told you Stalin had a Trotsky assassinated in Moscow 1940. Just like Chaka, that is secret police, even this guy Stalin had his secret police. It is known as NKVD. NKVD, that is secret police. I already told you the word they used is a purge. Purge means cleansing, purifying. What is purifying here? Killing own country people, countrymen, partymen is purification or purging for him. See, 1 million communist party people, his own party people, 20 million ordinary Russians, 90% of the army officers. So, see, these people are no less than Hitlers, whether it is Lenin or Stalin, they are very much equal to Hitler in terms of killing the people. So, only for the sake of control over party, control over country. Okay. So, just like Hitler, Stalin is also big propaganda. Okay, propagandist. That means whether it is true or not, if you give publicity to something over and over and over and again, that becomes true. For example, Stalin, there was, in one of the, informations where I read, some foreigners saw his photo everywhere in the country, in every house of the people. So, we all know that Stalin is not such a kind of a hero worshipped by people. It is out of fear. So, out of fear, people were worshipping him in every houses. And then Stalin made it sure that all people remember him every time, that he was playing a very crucial role in their life, whether it is their life or a profession or a business, anywhere, work, home, leisure, everywhere, that he was playing some role in their lives. He made it sure that his name is reverberated, repeated. This is, modern times you call it marketing techniques. He marketed himself in such a way, he made propaganda himself. This is what Hitler did. There was a lot of economy problem. He made Germans believe that he was going to revive the economy of the Germany, and he was going to make Germany a superpower in the world, and he made the people believe that. Same thing happened with Stalin. So, he was also a propagandist. So, this piece of information talks about how he killed systematically just to have control over people and party, and how he marketed himself as somebody who can save Russia, or somebody who actually can develop Russia. But it is also true that his main goal was to make Russia superpower, a modern developed country. But the path he took is not that correct. So, now actually Stalin is very much known for this reason for collectivization of land, Try to understand this, this is important from exam point of view. What is collectivization? What is collectivization? Sony Biswas was asking why people did not revolt against him when Stalin was killing. See, a common man cannot revolt against, he needs a lot of things to be in favor of him. So, many people kill in history, dictators killed, okay, you know, Hitler killed many people. Where was the revolution against him? So, even if there is a revolution, they know how to put an end to this revolutions. So, you can't expect revolution everywhere like French Revolution or American Revolution particularly. So, sometimes it is not possible, a few people try and they lose their lives. So, that is the reason. Is there any difference between capitalist and communist? Abhinaya. You see, try to understand, capitalism is totally against. Communists say the resources and properties, everything must be dealt by government. Capitalists, they just leave it to private people, private properties, private companies. Private people can use resources. So, capitalism, people think that everybody has a like liberalist, little bit close to liberalist. They believe that everybody has potential and they can thrive. Socialism is a little bit different. What you say is, for example, you have one race. If people are running, one person may be weak, one person may be limping, one person may have other problems. So, socialist people believe in equity. Equality is not great, equity is great. Equity means, you see, you have to provide education to people. Then, if you leave it like that, some people can access education, some people cannot access education. Liberalism is, let them access education and develop, they will thrive. Socialism is, we have to help the people who cannot access education, and then you see the competition between the people like that. So, those who have that disadvantage, we have to help them, and that is known as equity. Equality is just to conduct a test, conduct a race, whoever wins the race, they are winners. This is liberalism. But socialism is help the people who are at a disadvantage and then conduct a test or a race. Then capitalism is a little close to liberalism, but not exactly liberalism. But communism is they just pick out the person. They say, if you conduct a competition, without conducting, they say he is the winner, because whatever I say, that is final. That is like a dictatorship, and they say government dictates everything. Government controls everything, whether it is resources, production, distribution, anything is done by government. So, I hope this explanation is clear to you. Abhinaya. Okay. So, collectivization is 25 million individual owned farms. Even now, any country, if one person had 10 acres, he may have 2 sons, that becomes 5. And if those people have two sons, that becomes 2.5, 2.5. So, this is what we call land holding becomes very small. Land holdings becomes very small, and then the boundaries take a lot of space. So, now point is, what Stalin believed is there is a that's a big agrarian country, but agriculture produce is not that great. That's why he thought join all the farms, all the land. Okay. So make it a very big farms. Then we all know Russia is lagging in technology, whether it is military or even agriculture. Modernize the agriculture, farming, modernize it. Then collectivizing. So collectivizing means a very big farmlands. So then all those farmers who gave that land, they will be working there. They will share the produce or properties. This is known as collectivization. So small land holdings are not going to help the purpose of agriculture. That's why he wanted to collectivize. That is the concept of a collectivization. Okay. Then this collectivization actually helped. No, it did not actually help. It was not that a big success. You can see that in late 1920s, Russia suffered food crisis. Online students, just excuse me for these slides. I know it's not visible. From next class onwards, we won't keep this background. Just bear with me 1 or 2 slides. Okay. So collectivization actually it also was not that successful. So just happened in war communism, peasants hid food and produced less. In 1929, Stalin announced a collectivization of farms. Most common was colloques in which land was joined together. Okay. Stalin persuaded peasants to join by attacking kulaks. I already told you, okay, in national economic policy, a lot of people were benefited. Now, Stalin was inspiring or asking the people, those farmers who were developed, who benefited in national economic policy, those farmers, to attack kulaks. I already told you, kulaks are rich farmers in Russia. So Stalin was asking them to attack. Then, as I told you, collectivization had limited success and a terrible human cost. 10 to 15 million people died as a result. 10 to 50 million. So there was one more reason, that is a famine. 1931 to 32, there was a very big famine. Okay, 15 million people died. So that was the consequence of collectivization. Collectivization was not actually successful. Okay, it has created more problems. It was disastrous. 20 million people. Okay, actually its population has increased by 20 million, but there was no food for them. Millions of people died. I don't know whether it is going to be, but try to understand India's 5-year plan actually is inspired by 5-year plans of Russia's 5-year plans. So it is important for exam point of view how 5-year plans came into existence in India. It is because of Stalin's 5-year plans. So we can say that these 5-year plans were very successful. They have developed Russia, okay, made Russia good enough to compete with America during Cold War time. Cold War time means America and Russia were very big superpowers. They were not fighting in wars, but they were competing. That was Cold War. So, how Russia became good enough to fight America in Cold War, compete, whether it is a space or any technology, Russia was good enough. So, much of the success can be credit given to 5-year plans. 5-year plans. So, under Gospalan means it is some kind of a board which looked after 5-year plans between 28 to 41, 1941. So, Russian industry changed enormously. New towns such as Magnitogorsk, it was another city, Magnitogorsk, which is very famous for industrial development. Industrial development. Then Russia became major industrial country. In that how many years? 28 to 41. That 13 years was very crucial for Russia. We may discuss in 1 or 2 lines that Russia has become industrial power, but it took 13 years. But human cost was big, very high. Lot of people died, forced labors, working conditions were harsh, and hours were also very long. Number of hours were very long, conditions were, this is the biggest thing in Russian Revolution, workers' problem. Conditions were not good, working hours are long, and then many people were killed. But Russia was able to achieve that industrial growth in this period 1928 to 1941, and this made Russia a big superpower, a global power, and it started competing with America. Until China developed very much and took the place of Russia. Now it is America versus China instead of Russia. So we can say that Great Patriotic War 1941 and 1945, when Germany attacked USSR in 1941, Stalin used the same ruthlessness to defend the country. I have already told you, Germany defeated Russia in World War I. So Germany again made a mistake. Actually, Russia was a very big country. It was not as poor as earlier, but Hitler was overconfident. He was fighting all the countries in all directions. And one more thing is, Russia territory is very difficult. That Siberia, cold desert and all those areas, climate conditions are very not favorable to other armies. So Hitler made a mistake, and then that we will discuss in World War I or II, that Operation Barbarossa. In Operation Barbarossa, Russia was able to defeat Germany. Even in that war, Second World War, Germany was progressing very well in the war. Suddenly, Germans actually had to face that Russia's army, and then they lost that war. So Russia was able to take revenge on German people in a German country in Second World War, which they were defeated in First World War. But why we are discussing here is, Stalin was a able leader, particularly in warfare, in killing people. They are very good at killing people, their own people, and they are good at managing the army strategies, everything. So in the same way, under his leadership, Soviet USSR was able to defeat Germany. Then, as I told you, Stalin died in 1953, but the Cold War started after that. After that, okay, Cold War started, that is between USA and Russia. Okay. So, I would like to ask online students, when Stalin was killing many people, why common people did not revolt? We have already discussed that. Okay. So, any questions, online students? We have 10 minutes. Actually, I thought of starting American Revolution, okay, but it took so long. So, I do not think it is fair to start in this 10 minutes that another chapter. So, I would like to keep the floor open for online students. If you have any questions, I would like to discuss. And tomorrow you will not see any red or green background, I assure you that. Any questions, online students? Yeah. So, as they are not answering, we will discuss one more simple concept in this one, like again this is red, oh my god. Yeah, somebody is asking what happened in Cold War. You try to understand, Cold War is not a war, it is a kind of a competition. As I have already told you, Russia and China has become global powers, I mean America and Russia. So, America was very much developed, but particularly Russia gave tough competition. So, what they did actually is they have polarized the whole world. That means, if there are other countries, so India was not getting in that trap. That means, we always followed that non-alignment movement. We always said we are neither going to support America nor Russia. Even in Ukrainian war, we are doing the same thing. This is non-alignment policy, which started by Nehru. But the point we have to understand is, many countries either supported America or Russia. So, this competition may be good. If America wants to develop more than Russia, Russia wants to develop more than America, that is good. But this competition has taken ugly turns. Okay, they are trying to divide the whole world into two factions. Okay, and then sometimes instead of developing more than others, we try to bring others down. Those tactics were not good. So, this war is not a war with weapons, it is like a competition between two global powers. That was Cold War. And what happened means, actually we know that after disintegration of USSR, Russia has lost its hold or its global power status. So, that is why after that we know Russia had a very good opportunity because they did not have a political instability. If you see, Vladimir Putin was the president or prime minister. For 20 years, he was either president or prime minister. He can do whatever he wants in Russia. There is no opposition, no difference of opinion. So, if he is really concerned about the development of Russia with vast resources, gas, oil, coal, everything, they can make Russia a superpower. Even now, Russia is bigger than Canada, 2 times bigger than Canada, second largest country. So, that vast resources are not used by Russia. Even after disintegration in 90s, they can still can give tough competition to America, but they did not do it. So, we can say the Cold War ended after disintegration of USSR. 15 countries in USSR broke away and they became like Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, I told you like Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine. Ukraine was the biggest country. Okay, Belarus. Okay, all these countries broke away, and then Russia has lagged behind in terms of development or competition, whatever you call it. So, that is my explanation. I hope Sanyam Shakri. I hope this answer is good enough to understand for you. Yeah, as some online students are asking these slides to be changed with a different background, sure we are going to change that color, do not worry, we will do that immediately. Okay. So, it is just 3 minutes now, no questions. So, that is all for this class. We will start with American Revolution tomorrow.